My name is Zaid B. Islam. I am the president of MPAC of Western New York, and we welcome you to the Tent of Abraham and the Abrahamic Walk. We have a very aggressive agenda, and we have a lot of things we want to get done today. We also want to eat, and we will go through our program. However, before we start any program, we'd like to have a recitation of Quran, and we're going to ask the Imam to come forward and give us a recitation of the Holy Quran in our beloved month of Ramadan. Imam?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and peace be to every one of you. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون أياما معدودات فمن كان منكم مريضا أو على سفر فعدة من أيام أخر وعلى الذين يطيقونه فدية طعام مسكين فمن تطوع خيرا فهو خير له وأن تصوموا خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان فمن شهد منكم الشهر فليصم ومن كان مريضا أو على سفر فعدة من أيام أخر يريد الله بكم اليسر ولا يريد بكم العسر ولتكملوا العدة ولتكبروا الله على ما هداكم ولعلكم تشكرون صدق الله العظيم. The verse, I have recited 3 verses upon you. The 3 verses are from the 2nd chapter of the Holy Quran, which describe the importance of fasting as well as the month of Ramadan. I know many of you may be curious and may want to know more about the month of Ramadan because we are in the month of Ramadan. So I selected these verses from the Quran. Now these verses tell us the reason why God made us or gave us this month of Ramadan. Ramadan is the 9th month in the Islamic calendar. Ramadan means to burn. Ramadan comes from the root word Ramadan, which means to burn. And the idea is this is a month where you challenge yourself to do as much as good deeds so that God can take all your evil deeds and burn them. Okay? So therefore, Ramadan. Now, in this month, Muslims are ordered to fast. And the way how God puts it before us in such a merciful way that God says, God could have said, well, I'm your master, start fasting. But rather he says that, hey, oh you who believe, fasting has been prescribed upon you. You see how his approach is. Fasting has been prescribed upon you. And then to give us that level of comfort, he carries on by saying, كَمَا كُتِبَ عَلَى الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ. Don't worry, it's not something new. It's not something that you are only doing. Fasting is something which people before you also did. Right? So meaning the Christians, the Jews, and so on, people before you guys also celebrate the Lent and so on, right? So fasting is there in other religions as well. But the way of fasting may be different. Muslims are told to fast. And the word that is used is siyam. Siyam. Fasting in Arabic means siyam. Now siyam means to restrain yourself. And the idea is we restrain ourselves from sunrise, from dawn to dusk. And we restrain from three things: food, drink, and sexual intercourse. These are the three things that we stay away from throughout the day. So now this is what we call fasting. This is only in the month of Ramadan. However, if a person wants to do this in other months as well, then that's also something which is advisable, which people do actually as well. Now, Ramadan, God says in the Quran that who needs to fast? There may be some people who may be sick. There may be other people who may be traveling. There may be people who have different excuses that they cannot fast. So God says, well, if you can't fast in the month of Ramadan, it's okay. You can fast in other months. And just say if you can't fast at all, then you basically spend some money on the poor and you make sure that you feed people a meal. One meal for one fast. Okay? So that's what we do. Then God says, يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ بِكُمُ الْعُسْرِ. He doesn't want to make things difficult for you. He wants to make it easy for you. Therefore, if you can't fast, it's okay. You can do other stuff as well. And then God tells us, Ramadan is the month in which He revealed the Quran. Quran, although it was revealed in a course of 23 years. 23 years. But initially it was revealed in the month of Ramadan. And this is why in the month of Ramadan, in the evenings, our final prayer is Isha. We pray 5 times. So our final prayer is Isha. That's the night prayer. And after our night prayer, we stand up in additional prayer in the month of Ramadan, in which we try to complete the recitation of the Quran. And this is done off of memory. So Quran is divided into 30 parts. Ramadan is also divided into 30 days. So every day we manage to complete one part of the Quran, and as the month ends, we also finish the recitation of the complete Quran. And Muslims also individually, what they try to do is they try to read the Quran, understand the Quran, because Ramadan is the month when you connect with the Quran. You try to understand the Quran, what God is saying, what is He asking us to do, and so on. So basically, this was a summary of the 3 verses that I have recited before you. Thank you.
And I'm going to ask Rasul, Brother Rasul, for the Islamic Society of the Niagara Frontier, the president. Okay.
Good evening, you all. Shalom. Assalamu alaikum. Peace be upon all of you. We are very happy. As you know, every year we do this event, and we are very happy to host here. We are co-sponsoring this event. And on behalf of Islamic Society, Board, Council, and its members, I welcome you all for this evening, and I'm sure we're going to be having a great evening tonight. And a quick logistics, as I think you all might know or aware of this facility. If you walk outside and then if you turn right, then immediately on your left you have the restrooms. So if anyone wants to go, then that's where it is. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, at this point, I'm going to bring Khalid Qazi, the founding president and advisor, and many other things. So peace be with you. Assalamu alaikum. And also we have 3 Qurans to put on different tables. They're yours to take home. Thank you. Khalid?
Jazakallah khair, ya akhi. Thank you so much, Brother Zaid. Assalamu alaikum. Peace be with you all. Good afternoon, good evening, actually. And, we are short on time, so I don't want to go into too many preliminaries. So we have a little conversation that we thought yesterday we should have a conversation as to what happened in Orlando. And there would be at least a Christian perspective, a Muslim perspective, a Jewish perspective. And I had invited the senior director of the Pride Center of Buffalo, Matt. But unfortunately, he was out of town. He was actually in Florida last night, and he probably might have just come back, but he was not able to join. But I would request Reverend Tom Yurdi to come to the podium here, Bill Hennessy, and Rich. Where are you, Rich Calvin? Yes. I'll just open it up, and then we go from there, see how it goes. My daughter lives in Orlando, so she texted me first thing Sunday morning. I was asleep because, we had taken a meal at about 3:15 in the morning, and then we pray, and so we were asleep, totally out. And she texted me that Papa, she calls me Pop, did you hear about this? So obviously I had no clue. And then, she told me the story. And obviously there was no way me or my wife could go back to sleep then. It was a devastating news. And so we got on the phone with the, local board of Muslim Public Affairs Council Executive Board, and we have a national organization, national board. So for the next several hours, we are saying, the first thing was, God, it shouldn't be a Muslim. That really, when my daughter said this that time, it wasn't known. It wasn't clear the very first minute that it is a Muslim guy who has done it. So we were just hoping that it's not a Muslim, but you hope it never comes through. So then after a few hours, we collected some information. And then I sent a short email to some of my friends. Some of them are right here in interfaith community and in my own community. And I told them, hey, I got this email, this text from my daughter, and it's terrible, and made a few comments. And after that, we issued a formal press release in relation to how we condemn it, how we feel, how agonizing it was. And obviously that time, the only feeling we had was for those who were killed and the families. After that, we had a debate on the phone nationally with about 50 scholars and leaders of major Muslim organizations, as well as some of the most active community activists around the country. And it was clear that everybody was struggling terribly to come to grips with what had happened. Because on the one hand, we were all devastated in the month of Ramadan that anybody would be killed. And on the other hand, that here we have a Muslim youngster, Muslim guy, who again is being accused of this heinous crime. And at that time, I was convinced that, and still am, that it was absolutely a hate crime against LGBTQ community. And therefore, we wanted to reach out to the LGBT community to make sure they know that we absolutely condemn this abhorring act, this heinous act, and our sympathies are with them, and we stand united with them at this moment of need and despair and shock. Because in our scriptures, time and again, the value of life is so much emphasized again and again, to the extent, if you remember the Judeo-Christian tradition of if you saved one life, it is as if you saved the whole life, is a total reproduction in our own scriptures as well. And if you look at the belief system of Muslims, the 10 Commandments are the integral part of who we are and what we stand for. Therefore, this struggle continues. And we were debating this, and then we came up with a beautiful collective statement the day after, on 13th. On 12th, all major organizations had given their individual separate communiques as well as their statements. But then on the next day, we formulated a collective statement that I will read if we have opportunity for that. But I just wanted to make sure that we express our utmost disgust, on the one hand, for this heinous crime, and on the other hand, our despair that we are still being accused as a belief system, as a faith system, that is perpetuating or making it possible for such crime to occur, irrespective of how much we may do and continue to do to assist our communities, assist our law enforcement agencies and our neighbors to sort of nip this evil in the bud. But this evil truly is evil. However, it's not going to be solved by accusation of a single group of people and their faith. It's not going to happen. If we really want the best foot of the Muslims forwards, we have to make them a part of the solution. If we continue this demagoguery that the Muslims are a part of the problem, then let me guarantee you that Muslims will be a part of the problem, if not in the United States, overseas for sure. We have to be able to build bridges with the community that is reporting over 1/3 of all, crimes that may be perpetuated by so-called Muslims. And this is not my own data. This is a data from our own law enforcement agencies and FBI, that 1/3 of the occurrences are reported to them by the community itself. So, Tom, I'll turn to you and tell you we have been talking for decades now, but more recently over the last 2-3 days as to the agony we are going through. And let's hear what you have to say.
Thank you, Khalid. Tom Yordi. I'm pastor at Westminster Presbyterian Church in Buffalo, and it's a great honor and joy for me to be here another year for this interfaith gathering and celebration of the breaking of the fast at Ramadan. Our daughter-in-law, Carol's and my daughter-in-law, Julie, is a teacher in the Newtown, Connecticut school system. She was teaching in the other elementary school when that mass killing took place, but it was through her sort of updating us first with the incredible tragedy, but then over the last couple of years, some of the healing that began to take place, some of the action that the parents have engaged in, as you may have read about recently, that has helped us to get below and beyond the headlines of an event like this that come and go and pass so quickly, and we run the risk, I think, of our collective memory, our public memory seems to be so short. Unless we find some way to remind ourselves and to realize the incredible loss of life that has taken place. So one of the first things that it occurred to me that we need to do, and I was delighted that Khalid wanted to take a moment tonight for us to pause and reflect, was to think about the victims, 49 people, lives that have been lost, innocent people, and 53 others who, some of whom are struggling for life. There is a list of these 49 names. We will read these names this Sunday in worship. To read the names is to go to another level of the reality of what took place. And so I would encourage you, if you can find the names, it's going around, you know, on the internet. They're not too difficult to find. To read through those names. And before we engage in the posturing and the politicking and the headline making, to stop and pause and realize that this has been a loss of precious life. One of the themes of the pundits is that we are a divided nation, that we cannot agree in the wake of a tragedy like this on much, if anything. But in fact, I think there is much agreement here. There is much common ground tonight among our faith traditions in rejecting the violence that took place in Orlando. The highest principles of our ancestor Abraham and the tradition that we, each of us, the traditions that we celebrate and practice, call us to work for peace and justice, not to engage in violence, discrimination, bigotry, bias, labeling, stereotyping, shunning, rejecting, isolating people, closing our borders in one wholesale move, condemning an entire religious tradition and those who follow it. That is not what any of our religious traditions, any of the great faith traditions call for, but rather for the celebration of diversity and for the working toward peace. And we can't work for peace without working for justice in this world, because it is a flawed and imperfect world. And there will be no peace until there is justice. So I encourage you to find those names, to read them, to reflect upon the life that has been lost, to keep those families in your prayers, not just today or tomorrow, but in the days ahead. I have a feeling that this will be an event that we will be remembering, not just through 2016, but a year from now, and beyond this past week. The president, the last thing I want to add is that President Obama, I think, has risen to the occasion in a magnificent way. And he simply said, what kind of a nation do we want to be? This is a moment in which we decide who we are going to be as communities across the nation, but as a nation as a whole. And I don't think those were just, that was not rhetoric. He was speaking to every person in this society that has the privilege and responsibility to choose our elected leaders, to participate in democracy. That was a wake-up call for all of us. And yet the tendency is to think that somebody else has that responsibility. Someone else will make the policies, will make the decisions, and we're just, you know, one vote, and we don't count all that much. But in fact, I think this is a renewed call for gatherings like this, for reminders that this nation is an experiment in democracy. 340 years ago, we had a revolution. We said we no longer want to be colonies of an empire, but we want to try something that has never been tried, and that is for the people to determine the destiny of the nation. And that was an experiment that really had never been embarked upon. And for 340 years, we have been shaping the life of this nation around our rights and freedoms that everyone in this room has. And the question is still, I think, is that democratic spirit, commitment to those rights and freedoms as alive today as they were in 1776. And I hope they are, because if they're not, our future isn't very bright. But I have a feeling that, that this will be a year, this election year is absolutely critical in the national election, the election for president, and all of the coattail elections that will follow Mr. Trump and Hillary Clinton. It is a moment when we will decide what kind of nation we want to be. So I encourage us to exercise our democratic responsibility and rights and freedoms, to continue to practice our faith traditions, pursuit of peace and justice. And thank you, Khalid, for this opportunity.
Well, thank you, Tom, and thank you, Khalid. When we first got together face to face, so to speak, except for Bill, he was by telephone a couple days ago to discuss this program tonight. These guys had so many ideas about what should be said, and the fact was I didn't have any ideas at all. I was too confused, which complex events like what happened in Orlando can create confusion because there were so many contradictory indications as to why this shooter did what he did. I won't go into all of that right now, but it's my view as a longtime journalist that the world is in a unique position today in which communication through technology is extraordinary. It's quick. Secondly, with the economies suffering all over the world, including the United States, people have lost their confidence in the future. Their sense of identity and their destiny in their lives has been shattered. And politicians are taking advantage of that. Politicians can blame a people or religion, an area, a geographic area, can do a lot of things to blame as to what's happening, and we see that a lot in our politics. Now, in our Jewish tradition, we often call up what we call the wisdom of the sages at times of crisis like this. So right now, I would like to, oh, by the way, I'm a member of Congregation Havarah. I am Jewish, in case you couldn't tell. And I want to mention to our imam that I appreciate your recitation of the Quran. I thought it was beautiful. Didn't understand the language, but I also I appreciated your explanation, because in the Jewish tradition, we have something called Yom Kippur, which you know about, of course, which is a day of atonement. When we do the same thing, we think about things that we need to correct in the year ahead. And we do fast, at least we try to. But there was something about the sound of the language and your chanting that spoke to me as much, not as much perhaps, but very much like Hebrew does. The sound of Hebrew, even though I don't understand most of it, really means a lot to me, and I thank you very much for that experience. Yeah, that was an eye-opener, or an ear-opener. Thank you, sir. Bernie Schenkler is the president of Havarah. He's here with his wife, Ellen. My wife, Ann, is next to Bernie, and Jane Jacobson is right here. Anybody else from Havarah here? Anyway, we are here, the top rank right here, and me, just a guy. I'd like to call up the wisdom of an honorary sage, which is Dr. Khalid Kazi. And Khalid, Jewish you are not, Muslim you are indeed. Nonetheless, I remember something that you said to me 7 years ago, which stays with me today. I interviewed Dr. Kazi for Channel 2 News in 2009 on the emergence of mass murder by groups claiming to represent Islam. Dr. Kazi didn't hesitate in saying they did not speak for him. They killed more Muslims than non-Muslims. They're a danger to us all, he said. They must be fought by all of us together, including and especially Muslims who stood not only to be murdered, but to be stereotyped and blamed as part of the problem. And what he said next has stayed with me ever since. He said, murder in the name of any religion represents a culture of death. He said we must work together to create a culture of life. People were asking why Muslim leaders in those days, 7 years ago, why don't they speak out more about the killings? Well, they did, and Dr. Kazi did speak out in no uncertain terms, and that was 7 years ago. It was broadcast on Channel 2. I was happy I did that story because that was important to be told. So I believe we must work together to create a culture of life in our mosques, in our synagogues, our churches, our temples, and most of all, in our homes. What we teach our children can save lives. Love instead of hate, life instead of death, reasoned discussion instead of furious demonizing of those who disagree with you. We must work together to raise up love over hate, life over death, regardless of how we got here. That's what unites us in common cause. So I'm happy and honored to be here with you tonight and hear our remarks so far this evening, and to wish you Ramadan Mubarak. All best wishes. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Bill Hennessy. I'm the pastor at North Presbyterian Church, and we've been a part of the Abraham Walk for 8 years, and very, very pleased to be the beginning point for the walk, and have enjoyed being a part of this event very, very much. It's a highlight of my year, certainly, and I know it is of others in the congregation as well. I'm going to invite you now to observe a time of silence. So I invite you to just observe just a minute of silence to reflect on some of the things you've heard and some of the things that perhaps are roiling around in your minds since the events of Monday. So please join me. O God, the compassionate, full of mercy, abounding in steadfast love, walk with us in our grief. Lead us into your peace. Amen.
Thank you very much, Tom, Rich, Bill, for your thoughts and feelings. And those of you who might have come a few minutes late, we were sort of reflecting on what happened in Orlando on Sunday, that heinous crime, hate crime that occurred. And I did recognize a couple people who just came in a little while ago, and I'm going to put them on spot. So forgive me because they deal with law enforcement, so it might be worthwhile to bring them up and give this little update as to what's going on. One is the U.S. Attorney for the Western District of New York, Mr. Hochul, the top federal law enforcement agent here. And we have a new, not really so new, it's been a year, for the new special agent in charge for Federal Bureau of Investigations for Western New York, Mr. Cohen. I could see, my eye isn't that great, but nobody can escape your presence. So we started, and I think you may not have heard those particular comments. We started, I opened this with a couple remarks that on the one hand, we are devastated with the loss of life. And what must be happening with the families of those who have been killed and in hospital, only they know. We can only surmise, we can imagine, we can think what must be happening, because many of us have also gone through these experiences of losing a near and dear one in the family. So we know what it means, especially when it happens to totally innocent people who have nothing to do with what's going on. On that one side. And on the other hand, then even though we feel that, and when I say we in this context is Muslim community, do what we feel is the right thing to do in the context of our own homeland security. Because remember, most of the immigrant Muslims have something which you don't, and that is that you were born in America. You had no choice to be in America. We had a choice to be American. When we sold everything to come to America, when we burned all the bridges to come to America, that was a statement in itself as to who we are and how much we're going to care and love our new home, because we have nowhere else to go. So we feel that there is no, what should I say, mechanism, agency that is as important a part of the solution as Muslim community. And I just wanted I'm putting you on the spot, I realize, and please forgive me for this. This is your first time coming here. This is his umpteenth time coming here, so he can take these darts. So please tell us, what do you think a Muslim community should be doing in terms of this menace? And do you feel that Muslim community is anywhere close to doing what they're doing or what they should be doing? Who wants to go first?
I'm going to speak first because Bill's a very good speaker, and he'll show me up. So, hey folks, I've met some of you, not all of you. My name is Adam Cohen. I am the relatively new special agent in charge of the Buffalo office of the FBI. So first of all, thank you very much for inviting me here. MPAC, you sir. And I want to especially thank the Muslim community, because over the 8+ months that I've actually been here, I have received an overwhelming welcome from that entire community across all spectrums of it. I've been to many events such as this in the short time that I've been here, and I cannot say that I did not expect to be welcomed as much as I was. So thank you, all of you who are part of that community. So speaking to your specific question or observation, just a few things to say about that. You will hear time and time again that there's a bad phrase, I'm not a big fan of it, but it's the whole see something, say something idea. What that means is if you are suspicious of something in your community or in your neighborhood, you have an obligation, a right to your own community and to yourself to make sure that that is communicated to the appropriate people. Those people can be whoever you feel comfortable with. That can be your local law enforcement all the way up to the FBI. So is the Muslim community being treated fairly or not, to speak to your question? I think these are going to be tough times. I think when bad things happen, people naturally will look for somebody to blame, and that somebody could be an entire community. So, two things to keep in mind. Part of showing the nation that certain groups are part of that nation is to always make sure you do the right thing. And if you become aware of something in your own community, you need to make sure that you don't keep that to yourself, that you communicate that. It's when people may know about something and have not said it, that's when there's a stigma attached to an entire community. More importantly, right now, people are looking for somebody to blame. I'm not going to speak about politics. That's not what we do in the FBI. I will completely avoid that. But I will say that people out there in the community would be potentially looking for somebody to blame. The FBI is the only federal law enforcement agency that is tasked with investigating civil rights violations. If you feel that you are becoming a victim due to the fact that you are a certain part of society, a community, please know that the FBI is here to hear those concerns and to work with you to address those concerns. We want to make sure that nobody is being treated unfairly simply due to the fact that they are part of a particular community. So with that, Mr. Hochul, I believe you'll now show me up.
Thank you, Adam. And I think to the contrary, Adam just came here from Washington, D.C. with just a wealth of experience to bring to our community. And we're very lucky to have Adam Cohen as our special agent in charge in this season of our lives and in our community's trajectory forward and upward. Before I get into my remarks, let me first also begin by saying hello and salam alaikum. I just feel so fortunate to once again be before you. It seems like every time I've ever needed any help from anyone in the Muslim community, I didn't need to go any farther than either this very mosque or call my good friend Khaled Kazi. And that's going back many, many years now. I first met Khaled and what was at that time the first instance of Americans traveling to train with Al-Qaeda. And now we're going back almost 15 years. And in that long time, I've come to know Khaled, respect Khaled, and consider him a friend, along with so many others that I see standing here and sponsoring this wonderful event. I agree with Khaled's initial observations, as well as what I know is in everybody's heart. This was a particularly difficult week for all of us. Anytime you see the face of evil on the scope that it was perpetrated in Orlando upon completely defenseless people with automatic weapons that should be on a battlefield, and where the motive is hate, it really shakes all of us, I think, to our souls. And it causes all of us sometimes to ask questions inside our own hearts. Question is, how could such evil happen to people that were just in a particular location, a particular moment in time? What could we have done better collectively and in the law enforcement community? It's 30 years now that I've been either in your United States attorney or assistant United States attorney. And these are the things that keep me awake, and I know FBI Special Agent in Charge Adam Cohen awake. And on a personal level, it's just difficult, having worked against evil for so long, to realize sometimes that notwithstanding everybody's best efforts, bad things are going to happen to good people. But be that as it may, over the course of 30 years, I've come to the place where, as a law enforcement officer, I feel I can say the fight and the battle against that evil is worth it. If we don't stand up in our own space where we are, regardless of our faith, regardless of our walk in life, regardless of what area of the country we happen to be in, but if we don't stand up and do what we can with what we've got at this very moment, then the evil, the bad guys, advance their agenda. And I, like Adam, cannot speak about politics at all. I'm speaking about more of a morality, a community, wholeness and wellness perspective. So the first message I would say to you is keep up the fight. You wouldn't be here unless you believed there is strength in unity. And you wouldn't be here unless you believe, as I do, it doesn't matter the color of one's skin or the denomination or the faith that they worship God in, but humanity is what most needs to be served by our particular talents and our particular vision. And because you're here, that is such an important step. Because you're speaking out and remembering the victims of Pulse in Orlando, that's a huge step forward. On the law enforcement side, you need to know that we are people, we have families, and we're doing the best we can. But we're also professionals, and many of us, and I would specifically point to Adam Cohen as an example, are leaders in their field. They know what to do to keep us safe. And they do that while respecting the highest tradition of this Constitution, which says and has stood for, and I heard the introductory remarks for almost 230 years now, that there are absolute freedoms in this country, and we will protect those in law enforcement, federal law enforcement, just as diligently as we enforce the laws to keep people from hurting other people. That means freedom of worship, freedom of speech, freedom of assembly. We're committed to that. And on a related note, you probably read the paper today that there was a attack in a City of Buffalo jail facility. We have charged that perpetrator, a City of Buffalo employee, with a civil rights violation. We've basically called him publicly in this pleading a bad guy. And there's a videotape of that event. And the media has asked me, will I release the videotape? And my answer, as you saw it in the paper, is I will not release the videotape. Why is that? Because it now protects the rights of the accused. And my obligation, among many others, is not only to protect the victim, protect the community, enforce the law, and we have charged civil rights, but now to protect the accused. And that means I have to withhold media exposure of this tape. A slight deviation probably from the topic you heard me or thought I would address, but it's relevant. And I will do that, as Adam said, he will do, anytime you feel you're under attack or under a threat. In terms of what as a community we can do more of, I share Adam's statements. See something, say something is always good advice. We can't be everywhere. If you have any information, please send it along, as I know you have. But with that, let me turn it back over to Khaled, because I see you're I know Khaled so well, he wants to get the microphone back, right?
No, it's just that we have a tight timeline.
Oh, yeah.
Just to make sure that since Mr. Korn is new to the area, we have taken that if you see something, say something to another step, in the sense that there is a number of community members who will not be comfortable going to the law enforcement. So what we have told the community, if you go to law enforcement, great. If you don't want to go to law enforcement, talk to us. Talk to your leadership, your community members, your imams, and that really is another way of ensuring that we have channels of communication open. Thank you so much. I know I put you on spot, but that's why we pay you so much. So okay, thank you. Don't go away. We got Thank you. Over the last last 24 hours have been so hectic because we wanted to issue a statement today from this gathering that you would sign on. And we have had a cross-section of the interfaith community that has prepared a statement. And all the co-sponsors have been here, but one of the co-sponsors is missing so far, and that is the network of religious communities that co-sponsors this walk and tent. So I would ask the president of the network of religious communities, Sue Tannehill, and the executive director, Stan Bratton, to come to the fore. And if you could read the statement that we actually produced with the help of everybody. And then I would ask everyone to sign on to it, unless, if you don't want to, obviously there is no way of twisting your arm, but, we might withhold the food. But nevertheless, you can read the statement.
Give it to Sue, who is the primary editor.
We must be really good friends because he didn't even apologize for putting me on the spot. I had no idea. All right. This statement presented at the 11th annual The Tent of Abraham, organized by the Muslim Public Affairs Council of Western New York, is in response to the horrific mass shooting targeting LGBTQ patrons at the Pulse nightclub in Orlando, Florida, in the early hours of Sunday, June 12, 2016. The attack in Orlando was an attack on all of us, the freedoms we enjoy and the diversity we embrace that has made this multi-faith Tent of Abraham gathering an annual reminder of who we are and what kind of a nation we aspire to become. And then there are several bullet points. I'll just read them with a little pause in between. This hate crime took the lives of 49 and injured at least 53. Our thoughts and prayers are with the families, and we extend our deepest condolences to the families and friends of the victims of this barbaric attack in Orlando, Florida. We unequivocally state that such an act of hate-fueled violence has no place in any faith tradition or religion. As people of faith, we believe that all human beings have the right to safety and security, and that each and every human life is inviolable. We join all Americans in general and the LGBTQ community in particular in expressing our profound outrage and grief at this carnage. Such acts of senseless violence violate all norms of human decency and must be uniformly condemned. Hate, bigotry, and violence are not articles of any faith and are our common enemy. Extremists will not define us, mold us in their twisted and malevolent image, or sow the seeds of discord among us. We know that the extremists who cause acts of violence do not represent Islam, and the worldwide Muslim community has repeatedly condemned their actions. We are one people, and hence, in solidarity, reject extremist aims and assert our shared humanity and mutual respect for the sanctity of human life. As people of faith and as Americans, we believe in religious freedom, civil rights, and human rights for all. We reject violence, hatred, and discrimination of anyone on the basis of race or ethnicity, gender, disability, religion, sexual orientation, or national origin. As the Muslims among us observe the holy month of Ramadan, we note with appreciation their daily contributions to the military and law enforcement, and to the fields of medicine, education, business, public service, and all facets of our community life. We are inspired and cherish their critical part in the religious liberty that makes our community and our nation strong. We honored the memory of Muhammad Ali last week as one of the most beloved men in America. We remember him as a faithful Muslim, a man of conscience, and a forceful advocate for peace and justice. Ali sacrificed his prime years as a professional athlete to stand against an unacceptable war that was taking the lives of Americans and Vietnamese. His principles and example encourage and inspire us to stand against extremism and violence in our time. We are grateful for and affirm the freedom of expression and freedom to practice one's religion freely that are enshrined in the Constitution of the United States, and we gladly embrace the responsibilities entrusted to each citizen and to seek and uphold the democratic principles we cherish. With solemn resolve, signed on Thursday, June 16, 2016, Ramadan 11, 1437, at the Muslim Community Center of Western New York. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, now you can
Now I can.
sign it
I can.
and then give it to Bill. Thank you so much for, reading the statement. I hope everybody agrees with the statement. By show of hands, is there a unanimous acceptance of the statement? By show of hands? Thank you. Thank you very much. There are papers going around. If you could sign on, and then we'll release this statement to the media as well. Since Sue mentioned Muhammad Ali, I think there is another co-sponsor from Islamic Society, Hussam, who might like to say a few words about Muhammad Ali, right?
Assalamu alaikum, peace, shalom to all of you. And thank you all for coming to Masjid al-Nur, the Masjid of Light, the Mosque of Light. And this occasion is one of the most pleasant occasions that I have ever encountered, because I see all these beautiful and wonderful faces walk with us, come and share food with us. So this is one of the most pleasant occasions. Unfortunately, this time it's a little bit saddened by the events that happened last Sunday. And we all heard, and I guess we all share the statement that the sponsor read, and we all stand for the rights for everybody. Before I start my remarks about Muhammad Ali, I would like to suggest something to all of you. When a prominent member of the community sends a mass email asking for suggestions to do something or add something, don't volunteer, because most likely you'll end up doing it. All right? Thank you, Khalid. So he comes to me last night, you have 2-3 minutes to speak about it. So alhamdulillah, I think I'm gonna spend only 2-3 minutes because we are short in time. And because we are short in time, somebody was driving with his fancy car asking the walkers to walk faster. Jazakallah khair. I have to retaliate, He put me in the spot, so. I hate boxing. I really hate boxing. I hate any violent sports. I don't like it. But when I was young, 4, 5, 6 years old, we were waking up in the middle of the night in the Middle East to watch Muhammad Ali box. I hate boxing. But I like the man. I love the man. He's the greatest, but not because he's only a boxer. The question is, what would Muhammad Ali say or do in response to these events on Sunday? We love the man. I guess everybody loves the man. So if we would like to imagine what would he say, he would definitely resemble, his stand will definitely resemble our stand today. Because he stood for justice. He stood for civil rights. He stood for minorities. He stood for right regardless how much it cost him. And he paid the ultimate price, right? So I'm sure 100% that Muhammad Ali would have said the same thing tonight in response to that event. And if we are Muhammad Ali on the same page, I think we are in good shape. So please congratulate yourself on being here, on standing for the right thing. Whether you agree or not or disagree with the act of our friends in the LGBT community, you cannot discriminate against them, you cannot hate them. You may hate the act, but you don't hate the people. You don't hate the individual, because they're human beings. And in all religion, God respected that human life. And as was mentioned before, whoever kills a one human person, as if he killed everybody. And whoever saved one, and which is more important, whoever saved one, as if he saved everybody. So let's save ourselves by committing to our true meanings of Islam, just like Muhammad Ali did. Muhammad Ali was not fashionable in religion. He didn't have the long beard. He didn't have the short thobe. He didn't have, all these beautiful practices of the religion, but he had the understanding of the spirit of the religion. And the spirit of religion, which is similar in all the religions, is stand for what is right and just. Stand for the poor and needy. Stand for the weak and the minorities. And he did all that. When he lit that torch in the Olympics, he did not only lit that torch, he lit the light in the hearts of millions. My heart included, because this man stood for what's right. So we should stand for what's right, and we did that today, and for that, I congratulate you, and I say, may Allah bless you. May God bless you all. Jazakumullah khair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will break the fast in approximately 8 minutes. And as some of us will go across the hall to pray, please enjoy the dinner, and then we'll come back and we'll have a short program also. However, before we do that, you also remember the spirit of the tent of Abraham has been not only to bring us together and break the bread together, but also to remember our community members who may not be as fortunate as we are on this particular day. And therefore, that's why MPAC has always requested that when you come in, bring some non-perishable food. And as you can see, there is a wonderful collection. Thank you all for bringing in. And I want to take this opportunity to thank Project Ramadan that donated 15 baskets for the families, and also donated some cards from Tops. These are, for groceries. So that's one. The second is that whatever collection we make here tonight and whatever donations we receive for Tent of Abraham, MPAC matches dollar for dollar. So don't donate too much. On the contrary, if you really want to put the little screws on, Kazi or MPAC, please donate. And donate as much as you can, because we certainly, initially when we started this 11 years ago, MPAC matched $1 for every $2 raised. But then if you remember a decade ago, our economic situation wasn't that great in our region. So at that point, MPAC decided to match dollar for dollar, and we have maintained that. So I would hope in your own goodness of heart, and Zaid and Rasul and Abdurrahim, you got to go around with the baskets to collect some money so that we have money ready for our community members. Sure, we had over 2,500 pounds of non-perishable food, 2,500 or so, that we split between the food pantry and the Viva, the refugees. And we raised close to over $4,000. There was $2,300 that came in as collection, and then we matched it with the same amount. And after the expenses, we sent the check for $2,200 check to the food pantry and to Viva La Casa. So I'm hoping each year we have shown a little increase, both in terms of the non-perishable food that we have been able to collect, as well as the cash donation. So I'm hoping that this year will be no exception. We will keep this going up. And I couldn't thank you enough, because none of this could be done without you. And look to your right and to your left, you'll find people whom you love, whom you like, whom you admire. And that's the type of a community we are in. People who love each other, people who admire each other, people who take care of each other. And I truly tell you, that's one of the reasons I never moved from this area, although, over the last almost 40 years, there obviously are always, attractions to go somewhere else. But the people in our community are unbelievable. So with that, I'm going to stop, because it is getting very close to the time for breaking the fast. But by the way, this is the collection. Stan Bratton has signed it. This is the collection last year. And I always tell them, when you count all the cashes, I want it handwritten with your signature, so that there is no doubt as to what we collected. And here is the collection was total of $23.77, and then MPAC contributed the same, and then that was. So I'm going to stop here, and thank you again. We will come back after the prayers, and then we may have a very minimal program. So before I stop, please, two things. Make sure you register and sign on so that we have your email in case of future communication. And number two, if you'd like to sign the statement that was just adopted. Thank you.